And these, again, are difficult, and we as educators need to be braver. Okay, it's very easy to go into a class, to do a PowerPoint, to say, here's the knowledge, I'm off home. Here's the knowledge, good luck in your career. Good, bye. Okay, it's very easy. It's much more difficult to be brave and say, okay, I want my student to become, you know, the next Steve Jobs or whatever it may be. Okay? But if we have that sense of, no, we really believe in your ambition, your personal ambition of taking you there. Now then as tutors, academics and so on, we start to take on more personal responsibility for our students. They start to take on personal responsibility for themselves and start to see things in new ways. Okay? So we need to also breed curiosity, breadth, as well as depth. We breed polymaths, people who are, you know, looking from multiple perspectives, multidisciplinarians. We need to rethink. There's an old adage in the, you know, in the UK that if you are jack of all trades, you are master of none. You know this expression. It's always been absolute rubbish as far as I'm concerned. I think, you know, if you're only, you know, just, you know, like the old style, you know, just a fast person in one area, you're not going to do, you know, to, you know, take a kind of a really wide understanding and do the new innovation and creativity. Okay, so we need to think not of universities but of multiversities. Multiversities. Okay. Thank you.
You're getting perilously close to your time limit there. No, please continue. Our first speaker's arrived, so we're all
fantastic. Okay, I'll hurry through. Okay.
I'd like to move straight to our next speaker, Melinda.
Sawadika, and good morning. As our British ambassador said today, you know, the weather is very much like home. The only big difference is that while Bangkok only has 3 days at most of rainy weather, we have this all year round. So, you know, it's really quite nice to actually be in Bangkok. Anyway, this morning my talk will be very much on looking from a UK perspective how the creative industries, how we drive the creative industries, and I'll be looking at the creative industries more from a higher education perspective and how we actually help to drive the economy. That's right. Just a few facts and figures about the creative economy in the UK. So there are 13 subsectors making up the creative industries. It's very diverse and very complex. For those of you who, you know, sort of who wonder what is the definition of creative industries, the industry is actually made up of people where, or rather industries where the origins are very much in individuals with creativity, skill, talent, basically with the potential for wealth and job formation. So that's how in the UK we actually define our creative industries. And the 13 subsectors that I was mentioning actually covers areas as diverse as advertising, architecture, arts and antiques, crafts, designs, all the way up to music, performing arts, publishing software, and obviously computer services, televisions and radio. A few other facts. Over 60% of people who work in the creative industries have a higher education qualification. So many of our university graduates actually are part of the creative industry, much higher than other industries and sections around the UK. 1.5 million people are employed by the creative industries, and this makes up about 5.1% of the UK's employment. Exports of services by the creative industries account for basically about 10.6% of the UK's export of services. And the main exports are usually in publishing, TV and radio. And in terms of the job creation, most of the people are employed in music and visual and performing arts. They are basically where the largest employees are. And finally, just a final fact, the forefront of knowledge economy basically for the UK is the digital economy. So just a few facts and figures to basically demonstrate how important the creative industries is actually in any economy. Next, make sure that their work is also seen by industry and they also work with professionals. And just to end off, so if creative industries are a key part of an economic strategy, really, in any country, the first thing you need to do is invest in higher education as an essential foundation. Use new language to get away from outdated, typical educational speak. You need new creative language. And finally, recognize and celebrate creative success wherever you have it. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. A 10-second introduction to him. Our next speaker is Dr. Poomporn Thamsatitdej, and he's a lecturer at the College of Innovation at Thammasat University. Amongst many notable achievements, he's made significant contributions to the National Creative Business Plan, the Thailand Creative Economy Agency Business Plan, and the Creative Economy and Thai Education Development Plan. He's a graduate from Strathclyde University in the UK, and he was a Thai Royal Government sponsorship student, so I would say that is money well spent. The floor is yours. You have 15 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I just got here late. Well, actually, I just moved my residence last night to the other side of the Thammasat River, and I got a jackpot. So normally it should take me only about 45 minutes, but this morning it took me about 3 hours. And I couldn't drive here. I just left my car, jumped to the square, took MRT and then BTS. Anyway, I'm here. I'm so sorry because my section is supposed to give you an overview of the relationship between creative economy and educational and education policy. There is actually some activities going on in Thailand in terms of moving the creative economy as well as thinking about creative ways of teaching, not in terms of pushing students to think creatively, but to make more interaction between teachers and students. It's already happening at the rural area. It is very interesting. At the community level, I've seen some good examples of how teachers in the rural area make connections with communities. But in the city center, it's quite a shame though, because we don't have an opportunity to make these sorts of commitment with the community involvement. In Thailand, there has been some movement in terms of the creative economy improvement since 1992. We started with the idea of OTOP, basically just copying development, the term over from Japan. And after that, we just continue pushing creative economy, but not in the obvious direction. We have different stakeholders and parties and entities that try to drive forward the idea of creative economy. Last year, we just established the Thai Creative Economy Agency after the responsible of the Office of the Prime Minister. But up until now, we haven't actually got the National Creative Economy Plan, which can give some explicit direction to all of the Thai stakeholders. So hopefully this year we will get something out of it, because I've just heard from the news that the government is trying to assign the new director to the Thai Creative Economy Agency. Hopefully we will get some draft policy by the end of this year. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, that Thai have specific ways Of course, in Thailand, there has some movement and have some improvement in terms of learning and teaching activities. But what I got from some good examples around the country is that they create Thai own style or Thai characteristics. In Thailand, because of the rigid culture, when you talk to the teachers or lecturers, it's always, yes, yes, sir, yes, yes. Do you understand? Yes, yes, yes. Can you do it? Yes, yes, yes. What about your exam? Yeah, exam. And then I start giving them assignment. Could you design, the management system for your organization? They would come back to me and start asking, how? What do I have to do? How can I start? What do I have to take into consideration? Because of the gap of the relationship between lecturers and students in the class is, I think, one of the tedious factor that lower the development of the creative thinking in the classroom. So in order to change that, you probably need to think about your Thai characteristics. Because with Thai characteristics...
One minute to run.
So yes, sir. With Thai characteristics, you don't need to utilize, or maximize your power. You can use this family style, called them brother. I think King Mongkut University has been working on this.
To support the creative industries and the challenges of achieving a joined-up education system that's responsive. I'd like to use the last few minutes now, if I may, to take some questions from the floor. Could I ask you to make the questions very brief and concise, please? And if you want to ask a question, just raise your arm and we'll have some microphones around. And if you could just state your name and the institute that you're from or the business that you're involved in, please.
Or rather, we leave out the intellectual growth and the balance in the humanities. Because what we have, the problem nowadays, people are getting more and more selfish. They think about what they'll get. So we will leave out the human aspect of the students, right? I just wonder.
Thank you very much. Another question?
Malaysia, I'm from Multimedia Development Corporation, an organization that looks after the development of creative industry in Malaysia. My question is that many of us know that creativity needs to be pushed from the early age, as early as we could. May I know how the experts out there think that, what are the kind of age that we are looking at? Are we looking at the very, very early age, starting at 5 years old up to perhaps 17? So that would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Bun Lai. I'm from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport of Cambodia. My question to Dr. Poomporn is your last remark on Thai characteristics, and it's very much the same to what of Cambodia, because we seem that our education seems to instill our traditional value of being obedient to the family, to the society, and this kind of thing. So how can we move forward from changing the characteristics, from being obedient in the school, in the family, and then to promote the creative thinking, challenging and critical thinking in the students, especially in primary school? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That would have been my question too. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left now. I'm going to ask you to make a response.
Right. By definition of education is foster people to have knowledge and skills so that they can live better on their own style. The impact of that can be social improvement or economic development. I think that is I try to answer the first question. And the second question is actually, I asked this question when I was in the UK as well. The ideas about creative economy is something, but the idea about driving or pushing or developing human resource to have creative problem solving is a totally different idea. But when you talk about primary school at the age of 4 or 5, I think the main focus should be on imagination, creative thinking, using their ideas, making stories, but not lies, but imaginative story. One example that I got from the UK is that they allow 1 hour for a week, and let the students at the age around 5 to 7 play around and thinking or probably coming up with some ideas. Having seen all the grasses or the trees, can you make a story for me? And that is the way that they push forward about imaginative idea and creative idea. And along the way, at the primary school level, they're trying to give some challenge task. Let's say now, on the 6th grade, the student has to conduct their own research, searching information, analyzing it, and try to communicate with their lecturers or teachers using explicit knowledge, which means they have to think about it carefully so that they can write it down and can have a logical communication with other people. And back to the last questions, I think the paradigm shift must be changed by lecturers or teachers. We're not giving them education, theoretical discussions, but we're trying to give them a better way to live, to solve the problems. In that case, I think you will change the way that you will organize your teaching activities. I'm not coming here to tell you about these theories, but today I'm coming here to help you to utilize what I'm telling you today in your real life. If you change this attitude, from the lecturers or teachers side, I think the whole thing, the whole activities, interactions will change as well. I think we can't expect the social to get into the stage that they can drive all the factors and make people realize that, hey, schools has to change, teachers has to change, but probably teachers, lecturers themselves have to start changing first. Thank you.
Okay, very briefly, our other panelists.
What's the definition of education? I think this is, I know this conference is very much about the creative industries, the creative economy, and I think there might be a misconception that basically education is all about, business. It is and it isn't, because on the one hand, the role of education on a larger scale is to ensure that we create citizens who are able to contribute to the society in all kinds of ways, economic, social, and personal growth as well. So I think in terms of education, there is a much bigger aspect of what education is. However, with regard to what we can do for our graduates, obviously most of our graduates come out of university hoping to look for a job. And yes, the key of, the main thrust of employability is actually a very key thing at university level. So a lot of our subjects and a lot of the learning aims and outcomes are obviously very much geared towards employability. But that is just one aspect. I just want to sort of emphasize that. And there are other aspects to do with personal and developmental growth. In the UK, for example, 65% of all our young adults have all been very much involved in community work and very much involved in social and community and projects and engagement. With regard to the third question, with what can we do to try and create and foster that challenging and that characteristic of being able to challenge and to analyze and to critique. I think these are things that we can actually definitely promote in our curriculum itself. At university level, it is very, very clear for us as university lecturers that in your first year, you're only able to write as learning outcomes, describe or to describe really. But by the time you get to your final year at university, we're not allowed to use descriptors that use the word describe, but you're supposed to use descriptors with words like critique, analyze, comment, in which personal thought comes in and personal views. And one of the things that we always sort of encounter at universities in the UK, especially with Southeast Asian students, is that when they come into university, there is this absolute fear and terror of being able to express your opinion. And it's not due to anything else, but it's very much due to the culture of, oh, you know, the teacher is very, very important. So we try to knock all of that misconception down and say you are very much, you know, entitled to actually comment. Nothing is actually engraved in stone. It's very much what you think about it and how it is very applicable to your local context. Thank you.
Steve, you can have the last word.
Thanks very much. I've turned my microphone on this time. I think the first question, I mean, I certainly recognise and very much respect the sort of sentiments there. And I think, and I'm actually speaking this afternoon as well about business-industry partnerships, and I talk there about a lot of academics finding it very distasteful when we start to commercialise creativity, so I understand that. And I think that universities, institutes of learning should always continue those sort of great humanist traditions of education being about rounded person, elevation of the kind of the mind, the spirit, the soul, and so on. It's not just about putting people into the workforce, and we should, you know, always continue and fight to ensure that that's the case. I think the second question is an interesting one. When should we start to put creativity in there? I think the fact is, and we're talking about primary school or whatever, that creativity even starts at nursery school and early primary school with things like visual art, with painting and so on. So children, very young children, will work in certain creative aspects. But I think the problem is that then the curriculum starts to squeeze those ideas out. It starts to say, oh, well, that, you know, painting and so on, that's just play, okay? When it isn't. It's about something else, and there needs to be a recognition. But you know, because of certain pressures to do maths, sciences, language, and so on, the more playful element of creativity starts to get squeezed out of the curriculum. So it needs to be put back in many different ways, and we need to broaden the scope of those creative areas. But it does need to come through, you know, as Dr. Poomporn was saying, it does need to come through all the virtual systems of education. It's interesting, in Singapore, the government set up SOTA, the School of the Arts in Singapore, invested an awful lot of money at the secondary school doing the international baccalaureate, an integrated program, but actually that's really emphasising art and going to their performances there. It's only been going for 3 years, but going to performances by music students and so on, visual artists and so on. They're real prodigies there. So it's about that investment in real investment in arts at an early age. I think on the final question, it's difficult to me to comment too much culturally on that. I mean, but I think certainly within the UK and Europe, there's always a tradition, and perhaps it's everywhere in terms of growing up, but also in terms of university being a period when you start to rebel, you start to challenge the orthodoxies and traditions of your parents and of society and so on. And whilst we don't want that to be a disrespectful thing, I think that there are ways that we can if you like, respectfully and graciously rebel, differ, have a very dignified debate. And in a sense, there's also a tradition in the UK in practice-based research that when you're analysing your own creative work as a part of research, it's a sort of new tradition that's coming out in Europe, you talk about the other I, the other me. And in a sense, I think, in terms of that kind of thinking about how do I work against those obedient traditions, you say, well, the other me, another kind of me, which is a more playful, creative me, says this, would like to express that. So I think sometimes if one sort of respectfully distances oneself and says, well, look, for the sake of argument, my other me or another instinct in me would like to express this. Maybe that's a sort of way of doing that sort of thing respectfully and rebelling in a creative and pleasant way.
It's a very interesting concept, this idea about how creativity can be beaten out of you as you go through a formal education system. And I'll leave you with one thought. I heard a story recently of a child at primary school, and the teacher asked the child, "What are you going to paint today?" And the child said, "Well, I'm going to paint a picture of God." And the teacher said, but nobody knows what God looks like." And the child said, "Well, they will in a minute." Ladies and gentlemen, can you please join with me in thanking all our three panelists?